Previously on Let's Make Stuff. In today's video, we'll be going through the design process and the creation for an entirely new plaque that my friend Scott asked me to do for his command. Hey, my name is Chad, and on this channel we like to build stuff. Thanks for joining me again for the second part of this series where we go from this to these. And now we're ready to take 2 thin slices from this walnut, 4 thin slices from the maple. We'll do that on the bandsaw, and then we'll take those slices and take them over to the thickness sander, and then we'll bring it back over here and hand sand everything down and make sure it's got a nice smooth face. And once we're done with that, we can start machining our pieces. Well, that's not good. The blade broke for sure, so I'm not sure what else broke. This here is part of the rubber tire that goes around the wheel. Got a few pieces of it. Okay. It's hot. All right. So, not sure what I'm seeing up here. Can't really touch anything, but let's check out down below. You know, I could feel that things weren't running quite right. Okay, here's the belt of the motor. Doesn't seem to be damaged, but it's definitely off the wheel and the motor pulley. Three pieces. Second time I broke one of these saw blades. Both times hardly ever been used. So I don't know what's going wrong, if it's the saw blade or the machine, or me. I think I'm setting it up fine, and I'm using it for what it's meant for. So this saw blade is a resaw blade. Its purpose is for what I'm using it for, cutting it down the edge of a long piece of wood. So I have to get a new one. That stops my work for tonight. I've got these blades here. Like, this is a thin one, made more for making turns on flat wood. Two different sizes of that, and here's a little bigger one just for cutoffs. So neither one of these three are made for what I'm using it for right now. Alright, so here I am on my way to the Woodcraft store. Big Kids Candyland. But yeah, I have to get a new blade. That is critical to my daily operations. Unfortunately, the Woodcraft store is a good 35 minutes from where I live, so if I come out to the store, I end up spending more on things that I didn't come here for. Like I said, Big Kids Candyland. Alright, so sure enough, a bit more than I came for. I got the carbide resaw blade, which is about 4 times the cost of a regular steel blade. Got some new maple, and I got some transient black dye, which I'll be using for the bass guitar on my other channel. So by the way, if you're not watching that channel for guitar building, make sure you do that. "21 hours later." Oh my God. That is amazing. And there you have it. These are all the materials we have to work with to make 2 plaques. Now, imagine doing half of this once, building the plaque, and then coming back and doing it all again. You saved so much time by doing everything at once and not having to set up between 2 jobs. So again, we've got 2 cherry bases for the plaque itself. We've got 4 slices of maple and 2 slices of walnut. We'll be getting all the pieces that we need to make the 2 plaques. So it's about 8 o'clock here. I'm going to call it a night for me, but not for you. For you, it'll be more like that. New shirt, new day. Same material. Okay, we've got the materials that we milled up over the last couple days for these 2 plaques. I just have to go upstairs and convert the design into the software that's going to drive the laser and the CNC machine, but I'm not going to put you guys through that. I'm just going to go straight to the CNC machine. So here we go. Now our piece is already set up on the CNC machine, ready to go. We are running two tool paths on this machine. First, we're going to do what's called a V-carve, where we're going to cut basically a trough into the surface of this cherry, and it's going to make a design that is part of the overall design. And then we're going to run a profile cut, which is going to basically cut the plaque out of our blank. Okay, so that was our first tool path. That was what we call a V-carve, carved with a V-shaped bit that goes into the material like this. And now we have a 1/4 inch end mill which is going around the profile to cut out our plaque. It's also leaving small tabs at certain points of the profile just to keep the plaque itself secured to our table. If it didn't have the tabs, then nothing would be left to hold the actual plaque in place while the bit went round and round, and it would ruin the piece. Came out great, so now we've got 2, and now we're just going to have to do a little bit of cleanup. We've got some tags that we have to take off the edges. We're going to do a round over on the face of this thing, and what else? Just some sanding, some basic sanding, and we'll get it ready to take the layers that we're about to cut out next. But before we get to the layers, I have something to show you. This is a knot that the pattern cut through. It actually knocked the knot out and left a gaping hole here. I found the knot, I super glued it back in. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to mask off the edge, and we're going to do an epoxy fill to stabilize this whole area, and it's going to look interesting. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be interesting, which is also pretty cool. Well, the first thing we're going to do is give this a 1/8 inch round over. This is a 1/8 inch round over bit set up on the router table. You see the 1/8 inch radius here. It's actually even with the table, so we're going to run this through, and it's going to cut off a little corner of the face of our piece here. And this is a bearing here that rides along the edge, and it just tracks that edge perfectly and keeps a perfect track for this cut. And here's my blurry face. So now we've gone ahead and swapped out the bit to a straight flush cut trim bit. It's got the bearing on top like the other piece, and we've turned our piece over. And now we're going to concentrate on getting rid of these tabs that were left over from the CNC milling process. So as you see, the router bit bearing is going to ride along the top of our piece, and it's going to be taking out anything that is sticking up like this tab here, and it's going to trim it right off. And we're going to ride that all the way around, taking out this next tab, and there's a tab here, and here, and here's that knot I was telling you about. This bearing is going to track whatever imperfections are in the wood, so I made sure that this thing is riding tall enough to miss this knot. And it's going to go right over the top of that. Next tab, and then we've got 2 tabs on the bottom it's going to take out. When we're all finished, it's still going to have this burn mark where the tool went up and then back down to make the tab, so we're going to have to concentrate on that with sandpaper or maybe a card scraper. We'll see. As you saw, it was a pretty quick process, but by no means was that the final step. As you can see, we're left with some tooling burns here and some new ones we made with the roundover bit. We're going to take those off with sandpaper and maybe a scraper. Once we're done with that, we're going to concentrate on making this roundover a smooth transition. You can kind of see an edge that remains here. And we've also got some shavings that we can remove with sandpaper. And once we're done with that, we're going to take care of this knot with some epoxy. Alexa, set a timer for 6 minutes. Alexa, stop the timer. Alexa, set a timer for 6 minutes. Alexa, stop the timer. So we're going to give this epoxy about a day to cure fully. When we come back tomorrow, we'll peel off the tape and sand it up nice and smooth. It's going to look pretty good. So that gives us time now to go ahead and cut our 6 layers out of the 6 pieces of veneers we've got on the laser. Okay, this is the computer that runs my laser. Right now we've got a program open called Lightburn, which is it's got some design aspects to it, but mostly it's about driving this machine. So I've got the patterns loaded into the machine. I've got the settings set. You see black lines and red lines over here on the layers palette. It is what we tell the laser what colors to burn first, and if we want it to do a fill or a line in the mode column there, and we tell it what speed and power that we want the laser to operate at. So first we're going to cut the big piece, that's layer 1, and then layer 2 is just a ring, and that's also in maple. Both of these are in maple. And then layer 3 here is our walnut pieces, and that's the top ring and the balm and pieces of the flame. Well, here it is. All the parts for both pieces are cut out. The letters are all laid out in their proper order. The grain direction matters. So you want to make sure you get the right letters with the right words. Like that N doesn't go in place of that N. You see how this N has the grain going straight up and down? Well, this grain comes at an angle. Then here's all the middle bits that fall out from the walnut, the darker piece. So this is like the middle of the R, for example, and all the little triangles for A's. I probably won't use those. I will probably only use the ovals that come out of the O's. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I start placing everything in. But everything here is just the layers just sitting here. And the flame on top of the bomb here looks really awesome. It's got the cherry base with the maple and the walnut accents. Looks really great. Now all I gotta do is just glue everything down and clean it up real nice and put a finish on there. Okay, so here are all my pieces and parts. We're going to layer everything and glue it down with super glue. Here we go. Okay, the first one's done, but before we get to the second one, of course, we got to peel the tape off and handle this epoxy business. Pretty cool, right? Check it out. All right, so now that we got our second plaque base ready to go, we're gonna go ahead and get these other layers on here like that. Typically, I'll include an engraved nameplate for whatever the customer wants on here, but in this case, Scott doesn't have any intended recipients for these yet, so he's just having these made in advance to be prepared. Now, he can go to any local trophy shop and be hooked up with whatever he wants to get engraved and mounted on here. All that aside, that concludes the designing and construction for these two projects. Thanks for sticking with me for the past 2 episodes. Join me in a near future episode where we turn this symbol into a holiday unit ornament.